Hello, welcome to the round 10 preview as the Blues are set to take on the Swans in a rematch of round 10 2024. Literally a year ago, we played the Swans in round 10 at the SCG and got absolutely belted, to be fair. 52-point margin to the Swans. But that was then, and this is now, even though it does have... I do have this subconscious fear about this week. I'll explain shortly. But when I reflect on this game and I reflect on, 12 months and how much change can happen in a season, when you think about last year and what's happened between then and now, I would argue the Swans were the benchmark of the competition at the time. And for the most part of 2024, the way they were playing, they were unstoppable. They had speed and burst and pace through the midfield. They had elite spread. The Blues obviously weren't the benchmark of the comp, but we had a pretty firm grip on top two for a good chunk there. And then, broadly speaking, top four before it all fell away. So these were two of the teams that were spoken about in very high regard only 12 months ago. And so much has changed. Both clubs suffering from injuries to key players, more so the Swans than the Blues. Both teams, I would say, suffering from inconsistent performances. More so the Blues than the Swans, I would argue. I think the Swans' issues stem more from injuries to their key players than the Blues' issues have. I think the Carlton team has had a relatively healthy list considering. I mean, every team's got injuries, but I think the Blues have been okay when it comes to availability of players. I know that we have had injuries, but no excuse. I think we've suffered more so from lack of execution and just being generally an inconsistent team. So I go into this match. I don't really have a read on the Swans other than the traditional thought in my mind of going and playing them at the SCG. Now, they're coming off a disappointing loss to the Bombers. They really undid their work in the second quarter against the Bombers, and that margin blew out, and it was almost too little too late in some regard. But yeah, that they probably deserved to lose, and the Bombers did deserve to win that game, to be fair. So they've had a good win against the Giants, they've had a poor loss against the Bombers, and then they're back at home. They've had Nick Del Santo make comments around their hard edge. They don't have the greatest contested possession, clearance, hardness profile at the moment. But that is just a narrative that I think works in their favour, because I think when it's all said and done, the Swans will even out and they'll be better than what they are right now once they get their elite players back. But they're at home, and I've always worried about the Swans at the SCG. The Blues, we haven't beaten them there since 2019. And then before that, it was 2011. Maybe, or 2010, the infamous Chris Judd in the wet game. So I don't have a lot of confidence. I was happy with the win last week on Friday night against the Saints for Carlton, and I'm more so just rolling with the punches. I'm enjoying the wins when they're there, but I still do see an inconsistent team, and not too dissimilar to Adelaide in Adelaide. I have a very similar memory bank of games against this interstate team on their home deck. If anything, I think the Swans play their deck better. I don't know if that narrative is true. I think the players are the only ones that can truly answer that question. So, yeah, we've just not been able to find form with this group against the Swans at the SCG. So it bodes for a tough task. It's not impossible. I think we have the weapons to beat them. And I think when I do the preview for this game, every time it's in Sydney, I think I say the same thing. We have the weapons. Charlie and Harry are there. They haven't had great games at the SCG for whatever reason. I have memories of Nick Blakey playing more of a lockdown on both of them at times, and that working to great effect. I have memories of Chad Warner just seemingly untouchable at the SCG. No matter what we do around stoppage, he just finds a way to find space. I don't see that being much different this week. I mean, he's a great player, so I just have these memories of, Blakey streaming off halfback after beating Harry or Charlie one-on-one, and then Chad Warner, then you add in Heaney. So I think the Swans have the firepower, and I think they'll be fired up to respond, and their ladder position is worse than what the Blues ladder position is right now. I don't know how much stock the Swans fans take into it. And to be honest, again, I don't have a great read on the Swans. I believe that they're better than what they're showing. But if you are a Swans fan, please leave something in the comments below as to where you're at and where you're feeling for this game. Because I don't go into this game ultra confident, even though the record would suggest that this is very winnable. And this might be the good time to get the Swans, given they're pretty banged up. But I just don't feel that confidence going into the game. I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful, but I'm not confident. And I don't think I'll be confident for most games for the rest of the season, because I've just seen too much of an inconsistent attitude from the Blues, particularly interstate. So, yeah, that's where I'm mindful. Now, Carlton. Like I said, it was a solid performance last week given the circumstances. There was a change in strategy with Lewis Young coming in, and that took us all by surprise. Well, not all of us. I think some of us just backed in the decision, but I think there was a bit of confusion around Lewis Young playing and were we too tall. I don't know if that's going to be the case this week. There are suggestions that it might rain on Friday in Sydney, but earlier in the day. So got to be sure to watch Jane Bunn's weather report the day before, because that'll just give us all the answers about the weather. But if it's wet, maybe the conversation around are we too tall becomes louder. I thought it worked to our advantage on Friday night last week, but this is a different team, different set of circumstances. So, yeah, I want to go in confident, and I want to believe. We seem to be finding better form from the first month of the season. It's not fully trustworthy yet, and I am mindful of this, but I definitely believe that there is a capability of this. Injury concerns, we'll find out Tuesday night, but ultimately team selection will be on Thursday. I was at training on Monday. I saw Mitch McGovern out there training. Granted, it was a light session, very much a skills-based session, but he was out there with the main group as opposed to being on the side with the modified group, who usually just do laps or run-throughs. So that might be some sort of a tell as to whether or not McGovern plays. I did notice on Friday that George Hewitt had, I don't know if it was his calf that was strapped, but he had strapping on his lower leg. So maybe a watch there. Lockie Cowan is the one that I think will definitely miss. We'll find out Tuesday night about that, but I didn't see him at training. I did see Elijah Hollins wearing the number 2, but again, that wasn't Lockie Cowan. So I would hazard a guess that Lockie Cowan's going to come out of the side. And we also know that young Matt Carroll was carried over on Friday for the VFL game. So he didn't play. That would generally suggest that he would come in. So I would hope that there's one change. I would hope that Carroll comes in for Cowan and we go again. Unless there is a discussion around Lewis Young and maybe we're too tall, but I just think he provides the contest that we need, and I don't think it's going to be as wet as what there are some who are suggesting. I think it might rain earlier in the day, but as I said, weather report the day before will have us all sorted. It is Jesse Motlop's 50th game. It is the Sir Doug Nicholls round, so we will be wearing our Indigenous Guernseys, which are beautiful. And Jesse, look, an important match for Jesse, and Jesse seems to be not in his best form or anywhere near it. But at the same time, I feel like he's in this patch right now where he's obviously playing a role that's new to him, and he is being asked to evolve with a new way of playing. And yeah, it just hasn't hit the mark. I thought he found something in the fourth quarter against the Saints, but the challenge for him and for, really all of the Smalls is to find consistency. Well, for the team, it's to find consistency. So our Smalls were definitely not the most impactful on the scoreboard in particular last week. It's all starting to creep up for these guys. They're starting to reach that mark in their career where they're not quite kids anymore. They're not in their first 15 to 20 games, and so expectation rises. But yeah, I'm hoping he can find his way on the other side of this patch that he finds himself in, and come through and evolve, because we need it. What we lack right now is consistency across the board, but in particular with our smalls. I like where our defense is, our back six, back seven. I like where that's at. Conversation around Nick Haynes starting to really ramp up. He's starting to get his appreciation. Jack Silvani's another one who I think one of the biggest questions going into the season was, who's going to be the number 2 to Jacob Wiedering's number 1 in defense? And I mean, it's round 10. I'm mindful that it's early to declare anything, but Jack does really look like he has clicked in his career and in his position, and we seem to be reaping the benefits of that. So I'm not too worried about our defense in our, on the ground, our back 6 or 7. Our midfield, not overly worried about it either. The forward line is the one that remains inconsistent. That's for a number of reasons. That is due to players being in and out of the side, players being underdone due to preseason. We're starting to see some continuity under the belts of Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow in particular, who have had interrupted pre-seasons / seasons for different reasons. Then we've had players coming in and out of that forward line, and then we've had general inconsistency with the smalls who seem to fluctuate with their form and impact week to week. So we just haven't got that part right yet. That bodes pretty aligned for a team that's 4 and 5. It kind of does make sense. Nowhere near where I think we should be. However, I'm feeling like there is definitely room for improvement. And that's the main thing. Don't want to be peaking too early. I have found more hope for the Blues this season than what I had a month ago. And that's due to winning 4 of the last 5 and finding some form, barring Adelaide. So let's just hope that this isn't a repeat of Adelaide in Adelaide. Let's hope that the Blues can account for themselves better than what they have at the SCG. And yeah, we'll go from there. What about you on the Carlton side of things? We will hopefully hear from the Swans in the comments. But where are you sitting in this game? Do you have that fear of Sydney at the SCG, similar to what a lot of you were expressing about Adelaide and Adelaide? Is it similar or is it different? And does it change because of where you think the Blues or the Swans are at? So curious to get your take on things. I still remember when we lost to them last year, the big conversation around the need for speed really reared its head. We started tinkering with things, started dropping George Hewitt not so long after. A lot of talk around the midfield being one-paced. And so, yeah, I am curious to see where you are at for this game. Chat to you in the comments and go from there. Go Blues.